Hey everyone, Melissa here from Endo Empowered. So excited to have you all with me today. And, and we're talking all about fertility today. So if you're here with me, say hello in the comments. We'd love to know who's here with me today and what questions you have, or if you want to share your story around your experience so far. Would love to know more about you and get a bit more of an idea of what topics you'd like me to cover around fertility today. So just having a look at the comments. So feel free to let me know if you're here, what's happening. Yeah, what's happening? Yeah, what's Okay, well, yeah, so I have already drunk my tea. It's been a busy morning. And the tea I had today was rooibos tea, which is a South African tea and very high in antioxidants. It's got a very kind of chai flavor, I guess you could say. It's sort of, they call it red bush. It's quite a lovely taste, and you can have it with milk. So I like that one because a lot of the herbal teas you don't tend to have with milk, and sometimes you want something milky. So I had that with almond milk, and I just used the coffee machine frother to make it nice and frothy. It's super yum. So yeah, for those of you who may not know this, I am from South Africa originally, so hence why I'm drinking South African tea, one of my favorites. Okay, well, I would love to get some questions if there are any. I will have a look in our support space as well if anyone has any questions. Would love to know if you guys have any live questions. I'd like to give people who are live with me first option to answer questions. If there are no questions, I will just talk about fertility and my focus when I have a client who wishes to get pregnant, even with a diagnosis of endometriosis. I guess the first thing I really want to share with you guys is it is possible for most women to get pregnant. Depending on obviously the severity of your endometriosis, and generally that severity ties in a lot of the time to the number of surgeries. So, unfortunately, every time you have a surgery, it triggers more of an inflammatory reaction, which means more adhesions, and that can actually long term not be beneficial. So I have had women who've suggested they should have surgery as a cleanup pre, trying. And there's kind of two ways of looking at surgery. On the one hand, you've got to really weigh up what's going on there. Is there really a restriction on the ovaries, on the fallopian tubes that is inhibiting the ability to get pregnant, and how severe is that? And then on the other hand, we do need to look at time. How long have you been trying? What's going on in terms of, age, in terms of your FSH levels, things like that, and determining sort of how much time you have. Personally, I am much more of a fan of let's first do no harm. So let's really look at how can we support the body? How can we reduce those adhesions? How can we reduce the endometriosis itself through natural methods and give that a decent period of time? So, minimum probably 6 months of really supporting the body and really looking after the body. And if after that time you're still, feeling like, okay, things aren't quite shifting, that's when you could maybe look at surgery. But even then, I would be kind of hesitant. And this is where having a measure, so having an ultrasound or an MRI, and then working towards a goal and actually saying, okay, I'm going to commit, I'm going to make all these changes, I'm going to actually implement everything and really support my body then having that is really, really helpful, because a lot of time we create fear, or we create an idea that it's not possible. Maybe you're older, maybe they've told you repeatedly, well, you have stage 4 endo, it's very unlikely, or there's sort of this negative connotation towards being able to get pregnant with endometriosis. And the problem is, if you start to believe that, and you hear it too many times, you start to believe it. So a big part of actually being able to get pregnant is believing that you can. If you don't believe you can, you're not actually going to implement anything, because why bother? You don't believe it. So you're not going to bother to shift your diet, shift your mindset, work on healing and providing a healing environment for your body, because it's not easy. I'm not going to lie, it's not easy to make those shifts. But if you don't believe, well, you're not going to do any of that. You're just going to say, well, Mel, I took some supplements and now it should be all good. And, why is it not happening? So it's really kind of key to recognize that this isn't a quick fix. There is no such thing as a quick fix in terms of healing the body from a holistic point of view. So, yeah. I can see there's 8 people here, so I'd love to hear from you guys and any thoughts on any of this. I feel like I'm talking to myself, so if you're here, just share some thoughts and ideas or insights of your own experience with any of this. It would be really lovely. So the first question I guess I need to answer for you guys is, what is the best approach to really supporting your body to be able to get pregnant? And the way that I liken it to is like you were building a house. The first thing we need to do is lay the foundations. And those foundations are really about nourishing your body. So if you imagine that house is where baby's going to move into, baby wants a warm, supportive home. And that supportive home needs to provide for that baby. And you need to have strength in the body to provide for a baby. If you think about the process of essentially you're building life, it's not a minor thing. This is quite a lot, and it's very energy draining on the body. Now, if your body is already feeling energy drained, you need to support your body, build it up. If you've got low iron levels, if you're feeling fatigued, if you've got a lot of inflammation going on in the body, well, it's not an environment that the baby wants to move into. So the first step is building that foundation. And the area that I guess I like to focus on with foundation is really providing an environment that is nourishing for the body. And it's not just in terms of foods, but also, how are you supporting your body in moving your body? How are you supporting your body in terms of your mindset, your mental strength? And where are you supporting your body in terms of getting rid of any toxins that are inhibiting your body? So that foundation is really what I describe as my reach technique, which, if you guys have been following me for a while, hopefully know what that is. If you don't know what that is, please let me know in the comments, and I'll be happy to share a download for you on that. So replenish is the first step, and that is nourishing the body. Now, there are foods that exist that are highly nourishing for the body. And yes, whole food diet, let's break it apart. There's elements to that are obviously, that's our peak focus. But I mean, what does that mean exactly? Do you just eat plants all day, or is that going to be nourishing enough for the body? Our focus becomes about what foods have lots of vitamins, lots of minerals, lots of protein, lots of phytonutrients, enzymes, really dense things that provide for the body. What things have that? And yes, we want to avoid gluten, we want to avoid dairy, we want to avoid sugar, because those things are inflammatory on the body, but they are not, it's not necessarily nourishing to go and have just a gluten-free bread or, a non-dairy milk. They're not necessarily nourishing or providing from an anti-inflammatory perspective. So, um, most of my favorite nourishing foods, I will share a couple with you today. The first one is amaranth, and amaranth is one that I've recently discovered. It's super nourishing. So very high in protein, high in iron, manganese, and you would cook it very similarly to oats, so not hard. It's got a slightly nutty taste, which is super easy to do, because you can do it with other nuts. You can add cinnamon, banana, that kind of feel. I've also experimented with amaranth puffs, which is great if you're in summer, as we are here. So in summer, you want to have foods which are lighter and, more focused on not necessarily hot foods. You want to have something that's a little bit cooling, versus in winter, you want to have more of those warming foods. So amaranth would be one that I highly, highly recommend. And we are going to be launching our Drop My Pain Challenge food adventure in the next couple of months. And so I will be diving into all of these different foods and how to really nourish your body with foods in that program. So if that sounds of interest, let me know. If you're on my list, you will be notified about that anyway. But yeah, it's one of them. And the other ones are like moringa is the other one that I highly recommend. So moringa is a plant that typically grows in Africa and India, and highly, highly nourishing. Again, it's very loaded with those key nutrients like your iron, and being green, it's also very high in folate. Now, folate is something that you need if you want to get pregnant and you want to sustain a child, a healthy child. You want to have folate in your diet. And folate is typically something that you find in green stuff. So anything green, is really good. So that would be one that I highly recommend. It's just up your greens. If you're in summer, up your salads, and the choice of salads. So you want to have interesting salads, not just cos lettuce. Don't just go stuff from the supermarket. Yes, it's easy, but we want to diversify, because when we diversify, we get lots of different nutrients and lots of different things, phyto elements within those plants that contain more interesting things that your body wants and craves. And green stuff is really supportive for your liver, so helping your liver detoxify. But also green stuff there's something soothing about green stuff. When you look at endometriosis, it is an inflammatory condition. So inflammatory, we talked about this last week in the last series. Think red, think pain, think swelling. That is what inflammation is. And that's what endometriosis is. It's an inflammatory condition. Now, green is cooling, it's soothing. And so we want to basically use that on top of the red, and then that'll calm down. It's almost like dulling out the fire. And so green stuff will do that. And like I said, I want you to diversify. Green salads are great, broccoli is great, Brussels sprouts are great, courgettes are great, all those are great, because yes, we can get them at the supermarket, but let's diversify. What wild foods can you add in? Things like dandelion leaf, super easy. Most of us know what a dandelion is. It's a weed, but super, super healing. Those are adaptogens. Those kind of plants are super strong. So imagine the beneficial properties those plants will have for your body. So, hey, we have a question, Catherine. Thank you so much. Can you speak a little on impact of caffeine? Yes, so I can get into kind of in terms of inflammation and the impacts of inflammation. So Inflammation, as I just said, is things that will drive endometriosis. So inflammation is going to drive up that pain, drive up inflammation, drive up adhesions. And there's lots of ways that we contribute to that inflammation in the body. Yes, what we eat has an impact. And so if you eat foods that trigger inflammation in your gut, so things like gluten, dairy, and sugar have a tendency to do that. Now, the reason they do that is because there is some kind of digestive dysfunction. So with gluten, there is a protein inside of gluten-containing foods, so anything with wheat in it, called gliadin, which it's essentially a protein, and there's no enzyme to kind of break that down. And so that gliadin is irritating the gut. And when the gut gets irritated, it becomes inflamed. So think of your gut as like a hose, and that hose becomes inflamed. Now, when that's inflamed, that's going to create pressure, and it's also going to create something called gut dysbiosis. So that gut lining is supposed to be like this, and when it becomes inflamed, it becomes like this. And that means that particles that are supposed to be digested are escaping into the main cavity, and then the immune system goes haywire. So the immune system's going, they're not supposed to be there. Why is there gliadin in there? That's not supposed to happen. And so your immune system responds to that, and that creates more inflammation. And once the body is in that state of inflammation, it triggers inflammation in other areas of the body. So hence endometriosis, but often there is other conditions that you may recognize in yourself. So things like arthritis, rheumatoid arthritis, there might be other lupus, for instance, other health-related conditions that have an autoimmune component are correlated back to heightened inflammation in the body. Sorry if I'm talking too quickly. If I need to slow down, or if any of this is too much, please let me know. I feel like I'm just talking to a screen, so it's really hard to gauge how you guys are picking this up, so feel free to let me know. So, Catherine, sorry to ramble on about that, but coffee is unfortunately inflammatory on the body. So coming back to our analogy of redness and swelling and all those things, coffee is contributing to that. And I know you don't want to hear that, because coffee is something that we've become reliant on. Now, to counteract that, so there's a couple of ways you can counteract that. You could either not have coffee and, focus on adding inflammation to the body, or you could find a replacement that actually has an anti-inflammatory effect on the body. So things like dandelion root, for instance, is really, really healing and is bitter in taste. And if you add some milk to it, you could possibly get away with it tasting like coffee. It's not going to have the stimulating effects as coffee. And unfortunately, coffee also has a diuretic component to it, which means it makes you go to the toilet and lose minerals and nutrients by going to the toilet. So, I don't know if you guys notice, but when you drink coffee, you need to wee kind of quite urgently, normally within sort of 20 minutes of having it. That's the diuretic effect of coffee. And so we want to not do that, because we're losing minerals and nutrients through that process. Now, I get coffee is something that we're very often wanting. So either try and find a replacement, or wean yourself off it, or don't have it every day. Also, make sure you drink lots of water, or counter-effect that coffee with something highly, highly anti-inflammatory. So something you could do, for instance, is have a green juice, a green smoothie, or have something anti-inflammatory that's going to counter that. The other ones would be like celery juice is something that's really taken off. And a lot of women describe that they do get a lot of energy from celery juice. So if you're looking for that boost, you may want to try something like that. Or you can just look at what's actually happening here. Why do I have this low energy? Why do I need that support of that caffeine shot? And analyzing what's going on in terms of your energy levels. So maybe iron levels are low. maybe you're not sleeping right. And so when you're not sleeping right, you're supposed to be getting a cortisol spike in the morning. So when you wake, you're supposed to get a cortisol spike. When that's not happening, that's when you feel tired or you don't wake up refreshed because you're not sleeping well. And so that comes back to the question of how do you support yourself with sleep? So that's a very long-winded answer to your question, Catherine. So let me know if that's helpful at all, or if you would like more information on that. But that is, quite a key one. And coming back to our house analogy, we want to make an environment that's welcoming for baby. And if you're, in this hyperdrive from the caffeine, would baby want to move into that? I'm not sure. So, yeah, maybe have a think about it from that perspective. Now, in terms of our house analogy, coming back to that, what other elements can we add into an environment to create healing for the body? And I guess this is where, I know for a lot of women who want to get pregnant, there's generally this feeling of time pressure. The biological clock is ticking, or we've been trying for so many years, it's not happening. And it's a tricky one because I know there's a lot of emotion attached to that. But often when I work with clients one-on-one, I recommend waiting, and I recommend really focusing on you as the carrier of that child and really making sure that your body is ready to carry a child and that there aren't any toxin imbalances in the body. Toxins in the body are going to have an impact on your baby. And so if there are imbalances, that stuff is all going to be transferred onto baby. And there are many, many cases where women have, high levels of mercury or lead, or there's other gut imbalances or things going on in the body that then has a negative effect on the child. And, autism rates have gone up. There's, a lot more cases of premature babies. Things like that are related back to that environment that little thing is growing up in. And so, yes, I get the urgency, but do you want to put yourself in that situation? Do you want to have a child that now requires a lot more needs and a lot more care? We all really want to have just a healthy baby, but we need to take the steps to create that. And that is part of that house that we want to build, that needs to be a safe, warm, toxin-free house that baby wants to move into. So look at things like lead toxicity, look at things like mercury toxicity. These things are quite easy to measure and see if there is that scenario. I know for me, I grew up and there was still petrol with lead in it, and we lived on a main road. So lead toxicity was something that was affecting my health. A lot of time there's also gut imbalances, and there is a lot of overlap with gut imbalances and endometriosis. Now, when your gut is imbalanced and you're not digesting, and there's gas and there's flatulence and there's, bloating and all of these things going on, that gas that's being emitted is toxin. It's not supposed to be there. So that's a toxin and placing stress on your liver. So looking at your digestion and looking at how do you support your body to make sure that digestion is happening properly, that you are absorbing the nutrients that you're eating, and that you're flushing out the waste that's supposed to go out. That all that is a buildup, and it needs to come out because it's like a waste system, a sewage system in your body. It needs to come out. And a lot of time I see overlap with endometriosis and gut imbalances. And it's sort of interesting to me as to why that is. A lot of the time there is an overlap with the treatments that have been recommended or used. So when you've gone on hormone treatments, for instance, you've been on the pill or you've used some kind of hormone treatment, that actually has an impact on your gut, and it alters the pH levels in your gut. So you're supposed to have a range, like if you imagine an environment where those microbiome that live in your gut exist, if you alter that pH, that's going to alter that ecosystem in the gut, which means those guys aren't able to live comfortably in that environment. And so oftentimes you have an imbalance where you don't have so many of the good guys that are helping you break down the food that you need and helping you absorb everything that you need. There's a tendency to have more of the imbalances. And that's where things like candida, for instance, can occur. This is an overgrowth. Candida can reside perfectly happily in your gut and often does, but when there's an imbalance, it creates gas and it creates high desire for sugar because candida loves sugar. Now, that is one example that can occur with, say, going on the pill. And I know, don't feel badly about this. That is something we all get recommended. I was on the pill for like 7 years nonstop. So I know that that's what happens, you know. But the other one that often happens with endometriosis is using lots of painkillers. So you have pain, you take, you know, some kind of painkiller, Nurofen, tramadol, whatever. Those things do the same effect. They have an effect on that gut. They have an effect on the guys living in the gut. And unfortunately, they destroy the good guys that help you break down your food. Now, what happens when you destroy the good guys, when that microbiome is out of balance, is you're not able to break down that food. You're not able to absorb that food. Now you've got a whole lot of food that's not actually broken down properly, passing through the gut, creating more imbalance, creating more of that excessive gas because now it's fermenting in the gut. And then that loops back to toxin liver. So we need to look at that. We need to look at, well, how do we support the gut healing? How do we support you not needing so many painkillers? What herbs can you use to reduce that? You know, and I know for some of you, pain is huge. So me suggesting this must be like, what? You nuts? You know, it's a lot for you guys to accept that, you know, unfortunately painkillers are not helping the bigger picture, you know, especially when you don't feel like you have other options. Now, looking at your house and looking at nourishment, a lot of the foods that I recommend that nourish the body are also anti-inflammatory. So you're kind of killing two birds with one stone. And the more you can focus on reducing inflammation in the body, the less you will experience pain, the less you will have adhesions, the less you will have endometriosis. And inflammation is such a big word and such a big, you know, there's so much to it. But even things like your thoughts influence how inflammatory your body is. If you are in a state of anxiety, if you are in a state of stress, if you are constantly belittling yourself, being angry with your body, being angry with whatever's happening in the world, if you dwell on things, overthink things, and don't feel bad, guys. I did this for years and years and years, literally overthinking. I still do it. Overthinking, overanalyzing, pulling everything apart. And when we shift our focus specifically on our body and endo, and we spend hours and hours and hours and, you know, stressing and worrying and researching. I have so many of my clients spend so much time researching and trying to understand everything. And it's like, just let it go, because that is not supporting your healing. You're not creating an environment that baby wants to move into. You're just this stressful, like anxious person. It's not where baby wants to live. I don't want to live there. Do you want to live there? You know, what environment do you think baby wants to move into? A calm, chill, happy place, isn't it? So instead of spending all your time worrying and overthinking and overanalyzing, catch yourself doing it, and shift your thoughts, shift what you're doing, shift into a place of how do I find joy? How do I find calm? How can I be present and enjoy the moment that I'm in? A really simple thing I started doing was practicing yoga in the morning outside. And I know I'm in summer, so it's like super easy for me at the moment. I know some of you are not, but finding a space that calms you. You know, maybe you create this in your home. Maybe you need to go somewhere to have this. But practicing yoga, and when I do the poses where I'm lying on my back and looking up at the sky and watching the clouds, I'm so present in that moment and I have let everything else go. I am calm in that moment. I'm joyful in that moment. And the more we can find those moments, the better. The more we're creating that little home that baby wants to move into. So I'd love to hear from you guys. Where do you feel you can add more of that into your life? You know, what can you do to focus more on joy and peace and calm and an environment that you feel baby would want to move into? You know, if you guys want to share, like, you know, maybe it's painting, maybe it's dancing, maybe it's, I don't know what you guys are into. So let me know what resonates with you in terms of creating that environment. It's also interesting because when you focus on those things and you shift your focus away from those things, you're lowering something called the sympathetic nervous system. The sympathetic nervous system is what ultimately controls your stress response. You know, so when you feel stressed, you're activating the sympathetic nervous system. When that happens, your body goes into something called the fight or flight response. And some women sit in that response for years. I know I did. That response is not helping your healing. When you're in that state, your body thinks, I am running away from a tiger. I need to get away from this situation. How do I get away from this situation? It's generally, you will find you have cold feet and hands because all the circulation is going to the heart and the key organs, what your body thinks is key organs at that moment. Your digestion is altered because your body's going, digestion, not important right now. Your body is putting healing on the back burner because it's going, I don't have time for that. I've got to worry about this tiger right now. And guess what that's doing over time and over time and over years? You're not able to heal. To heal, the body needs to go into what's called the parasympathetic nervous system. And that is lowering that anxiety. That is coming back to being present. That is finding joy, all the things I just said. Oh, cooking is a lovely one. I love that. Thanks for sharing. Yeah, that is so cool to share that cooking is something that actually creates joy. I love that because it has so many benefits for you. That's really good. So what we're saying, yeah, so come into that parasympathetic nervous system response. When we come into parasympathetic, it's actually easier than we think. Okay, so I know when you're in a state of anxiety, you think that it's really difficult to let go of stress and there's things that are stressing you out. And so we repeat that. But the easiest way to come into parasympathetic is actually to breathe, to focus on breath. And you don't need to do any sort of fancy deep breathing exercises if that's not available. It's really about being present with your breath, focusing on breath. And that's why I'm such a huge proponent of meditation, because it teaches you how to be focused on being present and focusing on your breath. If you guys want to experiment with this, I really recommend the Calm app. It's fantastic at teaching you how to meditate, how to be present. Really, really powerful. Right. Catherine sharing, loves being outside, reading, cooking, painting. Wonderful. That's so good. Love that. So, yeah. Just hang on, we've just got someone who shouldn't be here. Um, okay. Now, the other ways that you can lower that sympathetic response is to practice things that, as I mentioned, that bring you joy. But you can also reach the parasympathetic nervous system with yoga. So, yoga is one that I really, really recommend because it is focused more on breath and being present. The poses help because you're now focusing on how do I get my body into that position. They themselves are not necessarily what actually helps your body. It's more that you're focusing on that and moving your body in a way that works for you. And it's very soothing in the way that you move. It also helps stretch the body and create circulation in the body, which is always a good thing. Things like walking is also really, really powerful for reducing that sympathetic nervous response. So, yeah, so like, does this all resonate with you guys? Does that all make sense in terms of the stress response? Hopefully, you guys can relate to that. That is quite a key one, and sort of talking more on that is where does all of that anxiety and all of that stress and worry come from? Yes, a lot of the time I found that it was a habit. I know for me it was a habit. It was something my mother did and my grandmother did. And this constant worrying, it was almost something that was passed on just because you saw your mother do it, so you did it. It's sort of almost like a protective thing. Like, if we worry about it, maybe then we can solve it before it might happen, but then it may not ever happen. So we're worrying about something that may never happen. So that can be something that, I don't know if you guys do that, but I did this for years. I would find things to worry about just for the sake of it. It was, I don't know, maybe it was like a way of entertaining my brain. It's totally silly. But a lot of the things I also noticed with stress response is stress can be triggered by thought patterns you have about yourself, beliefs you have about yourself. And those beliefs are things you can shift. When you don't shift them, that tendency tends to come back. So I'll give you an example. If you believe that you're not enough, well, you're going to work harder. You're going to push yourself. You're going to feel like you need to do everything for other people. You need to prove yourself all the time. You maybe feel like there's some perfect version of what a woman should be like. And so you drive yourself to be like that and don't believe that you're valuable until you do those things. So you have the perfect house, you have to have the perfect everything. You've got to have the perfect body and the perfect looks and the perfect whatever. And so, but that driver, that's actually part of why you're feeling so stressed, because there's this huge long to-do list of all these things that you believe are what makes, the perfect version of you. And if you're that perfect version, then you're valuable. The driver is that I'm not enough. And that belief that I'm not enough. And that belief, unfortunately, can come from your upbringing or situations that have happened, but it can also come from your own stuff, and there's a lot of tie-in with fertility and not being enough. I know many women who can't get pregnant have beliefs that they're broken, they're not enough as a woman. They feel if they can't have a child or they don't have children, that they're not important or they're not valuable part of society or their life has no meaning. Question that. Really question that. Because that belief is such a negative view of yourself. And when you have such a negative view of yourself, you obviously believing those things is not supporting the possibility that it could happen. But B, that's a driver of I'm not enough. And so all of that compounding anxiety and stress and stuff is not supporting you because you're going into that sympathetic nervous system response. You're driving up anxiety. It's sort of an irony, you know, you desperately want to have a child. I desperately want to have these things. I'm doing all these things and I'm researching and I'm finding all these things as to why there's so many things broken with my body. But do you guys see the irony in that? It's kind of like I'm doing all these things, but in that I'm creating all this anxiety, and it's that anxiety that's putting me into a sympathetic nervous system response, which isn't allowing for healing. So that's why, this is going to totally annoy you guys. That's why they often say, just stop stressing and go on holiday and everything will be fine. I know that's really annoying, but in a way, it's kind of, do you see why that has a correlation here? Why that link might exist and why women often do get pregnant if they just go on holiday or, stop worrying about it, or they suddenly decide, actually, I'm not even going to try anymore. And then suddenly they get pregnant because they've stopped stressing about it so much and stopped having all that negativity and belief around their body. So, let me know if that, I know that may hurt, and I know you guys are probably like, I don't want to hear this. So yeah, let me know like how you guys are feeling about that. Healing is possible. That's the key thing I really want you guys to know. Healing is possible. And it's something that I guess you need to see some kind of results to believe, maybe. I know some of you have already had amazing results. You've managed to reduce pain. You've managed to shift things in your body. You've managed to feel better. So it's possible. But a huge part of this is belief. I'll share a story with you guys. So if you're part of our members area, there's lots of amazing stories of women who've overcome amazing things with their endo. So if you're not a member, just email me, support@endoempowered.com, and I can invite you to that space. But one of the stories in there was from Renee. And Renee came to me, wanted to have a baby, had severe pain, literally every single day, severe, intense pain, couldn't function. And she was literally at a stage where she wanted to get a hysterectomy. She was so over it. And her husband said to her, look, I think that's pretty extreme. I think you should really explore all options before you consider that. And that's when she found me. And she joined our group program. So we had a group program a couple of years ago, and it was really lovely because we had 10 women, very intimate program. Everyone learnt on each other. So it was an amazing space. And in that group, we kind of implement things together and can support each other, and I lead that group. Anyway, she joined and she implemented everything. Like, she was really into everything. She really went for it. She wasn't mucking around. And at one point, she was sort of feeling a little bit frustrated. Like, she tried all these things, and yes, she'd reduced her pain, and yes, she'd managed to get rid of a lot of the symptoms. So obviously things were working, but she still hadn't fallen pregnant. So she was feeling frustrated. Anyway, we did a private consult, and I talked to her about this, and I said, what's your mindset? What's going on with that? And she said, well, Mel, I'm just so frustrated. My body's broken. I'm doing all these things. I've literally made a list of all the things I've got to do. And I could tell from her energy that she was still really, really stressed out, really feeling this pressure to get pregnant and this strong desire, but then this belief that it's never going to happen. And I could feel that. And it saddened me so much, And I said to her, look, Renee, I know this is going to be a stretch. I know you're going to find it really difficult to pull this out of yourself, but I want you to create something for this baby that you haven't yet got. I want you to imagine that baby's here and you've made something for baby. And it doesn't matter what it is. It could be a painting, it could be something. I know she was really into kind of knitting and sewing and things like that. It could be something like that. It could be just a poem that you find that really resonates. Doesn't really matter. Just something that has emotional depth to it that you create and seek out and that you're going to give to baby. And so she was quite religious, and she found a psalm from the Bible that they hand knitted, and her and her husband did this together. And they put this in a room, which they now decided was going to be for baby. And they invested emotionally to this belief, which, I mean, that is hard. I get that that is hard when you've had so much disappointment and so much trial and failure and trial and failure. So I get that that is a real big ask. But she did that. Anyway, it was a few months later, she came into the group and she announced that their adoption had been successful and that they were expecting a little girl to arrive in the next 2 weeks. So the little girl had come early and they were going to adopt this little girl. And then she announced, oh, and by the way, I'm 6 weeks pregnant. And it was just, oh, you guys, it was just amazing. I literally am still tearing up because she just went from somebody who had this daily pain and was going to have a hysterectomy to and having her, like, you guys can see in the group, like, her face of when she found out she was pregnant was just amazing. She was just in awe that this could actually happen. But she invested, and she invested her whole self into doing everything. But I guess I'm sharing this with you guys because so much of that journey is belief. So much of it is trust, and I know how hard that is. So yeah. Yeah, well, thanks for sharing. So having created, you love the idea of creating something for baby. It's such a lovely idea, and I know how emotionally tough that is. I get that. So I get that as well. Um, yeah. Oh, I'm glad you love the story, guys. I will tell you more stories. So, yeah, but there is hope. And I guess the first step is really looking at, where are you driving inflammation in your body? Where are you not? Where are you supporting your body? In what way are you nourishing your own home, your own space? And giving a space for a welcome for baby. How are you supporting yourself? And really questioning that, really seeing, well, what can I do? Where can I better support myself? And it is a whole environment. It is an environment of, what are you eating? What is the fuel that you're putting into your body? What ways are you moving your body? Creating circulation, lymphatic flow, breathing, getting enough oxygen to all bits of your body. How are you moving? What are your beliefs? What is, holding you back? What is driving stress? What is driving anxiety? What can you let go of? What tools can you find to actually let go of some of those beliefs around yourself? There are so many powerful tools out there now, ways that you can free that emotion from the body. And what are imbalances? So coming to cleanse, what are the imbalances that are in your body? What's going on in digestion? What's going on with the liver? Maybe there's viruses or pathogens or bacteria or candida or any number of things that are creating imbalances in the body. And how can you correct those? Those are the things you need to be asking. And are you really helping yourself? Are you really supporting yourself? Have you found an environment where there are people around you who get it, who can support you, who can be there for you when times get tough or when you start to question things, when you're not sure this is ever going to really happen? Have you got that? Because if you don't have that, you're on your own. And unfortunately, when you're on your own, there's a lot of negative stuff that comes with your own stuff, but also stuff you might be hearing from doctors or surgeons or partners or family or friends or, you know, people saying, oh, it can't be that bad, or, you know, and dismissing what you may be feeling. You need a space where you have a voice, where you're heard. So really seek that out, you know, and obviously we're doing a heap of stuff now with Endo Empowered because I'm literally a week away from finishing my degree, so I can give you guys 100%. But, you know, let me know, like, what do you feel you need out of all the things I've mentioned? Where do you need support? What tools do you need to put in your little home to bring baby in? What has really resonated with you guys today? Really want to hear from you. Tell me, tell me, tell me. What's resonated? I know the story has resonated. I'm glad that the story. I will share more stories with you guys in these series. So let me know, you know, what's resonated. What key takeaway did you get from this today? Like, what information that I shared with you today did you kind of go, wow, that was awesome? I want more knowledge on that because I want to be here for you guys, and I don't know what you want from me if you don't tell me. So really tell me. Okay, so Catherine said, the beginning you would discourage surgery. Yeah, so the reason I discourage surgery, and look, surgery is completely open to so many things. There's lots of criteria to consider whether you have surgery or not have surgery. So I don't want to put it out there that I'm anti-surgery because some people have thought that about my message. It's not that I'm anti-surgery. There are instances where surgery is required, but carefully thinking about what that is. Surgery drives inflammation. When you cut the body in any way, you know, even a simple cut on the finger, you get inflammation. So if you imagine you've cut yourself cutting vegetables, that gets all red and inflamed just from that little cut. When you have surgery, you're having major stuff getting done there. And just because you're knocked out and you can't feel the pain, your body is responding to that. So every time you have surgery, you're driving inflammation. You're driving up adhesions. Inflammation is what drives endometriosis. So it's sort of counterintuitive, but here's the big but. If you have got adhesions where things are so stuck together, like the bowel stuck to the ovary and, you know, the fallopian tubes are twisted around and there's a shit ton of stuff going on, that's when surgery may be required. And MRIs and ultrasounds can give you a little bit more detail on that, can give you a little bit more insight on what might be going on, but they're not 100% in terms of being able to tell you that. So then it becomes a question of how much pain are you in? Because the intensity of pain can be an indication of what's going on. And if there's pain with going to the toilet, like, you know, if you go to the toilet and you experience a release or that kind of thing, that could be an indication that there's adhesions there. I'm always going to be of the belief that do all you can without having surgery first. And then if that doesn't help, then do the surgery. There are so many ways that you can support the body to break down those adhesions, to get rid of that endometriosis, to drive down inflammation using natural methods. And when you push down inflammation, guess what? The endo doesn't grow. There isn't that heightened response in the body. And, you know, it's sort of a tricky one because surgery is a personal choice. I cannot tell you to have surgery or not have surgery. But I think we need to stand back and not make that decision from fear, because often we do make that decision from fear. So I hope that helps, Catherine. Yeah. Okay, Catherine's got lots to say. Yay. Everything resonated so much. Thank you. Key takeaways: remember to focus on mindset in addition to diet. Yes, diets become so cool. You know, everyone's talking about diet and got to eat this thing and avoid all these foods. And yes, it's obviously it is important. It's the fuel that drives your body, but it's not the only thing. And that's why I talk about an environment for healing, because there's lots of components that come into it. Memory, I'm glad you're here. So nice to see you. Memory is from Zimbabwe. So nice to see you here. She's asking if the UTI is linked to endo. Yes, it can definitely be. UTIs are obviously a bacterial infection, but I have so much to say on that. So I don't know. I might talk about that next week. We can talk about the bladder and some of the conditions that come with that, because there's a lot to say on that, and we're kind of at the end now. So I might do that for you. Yeah, and Yui, I'm not sure if I've said your name right, if there was any takeaways that you wanted to share, if there's anything else, if you guys want to share any key takeaways, if there's areas within what I've shared today that don't make sense, or you want more information, or you need more, just let me know. Like I say, if you don't tell me, I'm not going to be able to guess. I can do my best at guessing, but without communication, I can't tell you anything. I can just guess what you might want, you know. Um, so key takeaway: let my body heal and replenish with lots of green stuff. Yes. Glad that was something that you got, Memory. That's wonderful. So yeah, so that wraps up this today, the second one in our Tea with Mel series. I'm so happy to see so many people here today. It's really exciting to me, and really encouraging, because yeah, it's wonderful to be able to share with you guys and have these sessions every week. So if there's topics that you want me to cover, you can write to me at support@endoempowered.com, and I can share more insights on any particular topics that you guys want to know about. If there's areas within what I've shared today that you would like more detail on, feel free to do the same. Yui says, her biggest take: what environment does baby want to move in? Yes, perfect. I'm so happy to hear that. And I think it's Kate. Is it Kate? I'm not sure if your name's Kate. But yeah, how do you get rid of adhesions naturally? That's a whole nother topic. So yes, I can talk about that in one of the next ones coming up. So I'll let you guys know. If you guys want me to let you know about these series, they will be out every Wednesday. I'm still playing with the time a little bit. It's Wednesday here. I think it's Tuesday wherever most of you guys are, but it's Wednesday here. I'm still playing with the time because last week we had it a couple of hours later, so this time might work better for you guys. So the time might change still, but just let me know what times work for you, what, you know, anything, just let me know, because I really want to be there for you guys. So that wraps it up for today, and thank you so much for being here, and I will look forward to hearing from you. So talk to you next week. Bye.